my yarny friends, I'm Sara Sach, and welcome back to my crochet channel. Today we're going to make this fun and simple Easter egg pillow. Now it measures about 14 inches long and about 12 inches across, and it might be even bigger if you had more stuffing. Now it is made with the bulky number 6 velvet chunky, super chunky yarn. And we'll talk more about yarn after a bit. But I wanted you to see that you can make it with whatever colors that you want. And you can add a silly face if you want to. So this is our regular side and this is the Egbert side. It's so much fun. It's so squishy. And this is a super fun decoration to have around the house. Easter and spring. And of course, you can find the complete pattern with pictures on my blog. And as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make the Easter egg pillow, you're going to need about 8 ounces total of any super bulky number 6 yarn. Now I used this Yarnspirations Bernat baby blanket. It's called Dappled. Each one of these, the purple, the pink, and the yellow, are an ombre style yarn. And I love them for the colors because I think they're so pretty and they make really beautiful spring pillows. But you can use any super bulky number 6 yarn that you have, but it must be the super bulky 6 for it to become the size of the 14 by 12 inch pillow. And I've done mine in 3 different colors. You can do 2. You could do the egg and white and, just mix around the colors. And maybe you've got some leftover, pieces in your yarn stash and you can mix and match and make a fun pillow. They work up super fast, so you'll be able to see what they're going to look like really quickly. Now I do have some safety eyes here. These are the nice big ones, and we're going to show you how to add some safety eyes and a smile with this black yarn if you want to add that to your pillow. I'm going to put the smile on one side and the other side's not going to have the smile. And one side, of course, like I showed you, is purple as the main color. And the other side is going to be pink as the main color. And I did that so you could see how it looks 2 different ways. Plus, I think it's kind of fun. Now, we're going to be using our 9mm end hook. All right. Now, this one is a little bit tricky because sometimes your end hook can be a 10mm. And so make sure you're using the 9 because we want the stitches to be just a little bit snug since we're going to stuff it. All right. So the end hook we're using is a 9mm. All right. Then you're going to need a needle, weaving in ends and sewing on your smile. And then you're going to need some polyester fiber fill. And I'm going to say about 10 to 12 ounces of stuffing, depending on how tightly you want to stuff your pillows. I like mine to be stuffed good and tight, but I also like them to be good and squishy. So I'm starting with my main color, which I'm using this pink. We're going to start with our slip knot, and we're going to loosely chain 17 chains. And we're saying loosely chain because we don't want the bottom of our little egg to be puckered up. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Some more yarn out of my cake here. 16 and 17 chains. All right. Another reason we want this beginning chain to be loose is so that you can find your stitches when you're working with a blanket yarn. And this one is more of a velvet blanket yarn. Sometimes it's difficult to find where to put your stitches. We're going to begin with a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over, go in and pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. And now we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in the remaining chains across. And again, if you're struggling finding your stitches, just really look at it. I like to put my thumb in it like that. That shows me where that stitch is if I'm having a little trouble finding it. Working with blanket yarn can be a little bit challenging, but it's so worth it when you can make these fun, stuffy pillows. All right, 1 double crochet in each of our chains working across. It already looks so squishy. We began in the 4th chain from the hook, and this chain 3 at the beginning counts as our first double crochet, and then we stitched 1 double crochet in each of our chains across, so we have 15 double crochets. We're going to chain 3, pull out some more yarn here. We're going to turn our work. Now, sometimes this chain 3 counts as our first stitch, and it does, but we want to increase by 1, so we're going to stitch a double crochet in that first double crochet. And now we'll stitch 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across. And by using double crochets, you can see that this is going to work up really quickly. We're going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across, and when we reach that last double crochet, we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the end, and that's going to increase us by 1 at the beginning and 1 at the end. We stitched 2 double crochets in the first stitch because our chain 1 counted as our first. Then we stitched 1 double crochet in each stitch across. This brings us to our last stitch, and we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in our last stitch. And chain 3. And so now, because we increased at the beginning and end of our row, we have 17 double crochets, chain 3. Now we're going to turn our work. Again, our double crochet counts as our first stitch, but again, we want to increase. And so we're going to stitch a double crochet in this first stitch. And then again, we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets, working all the way across our row. And then we'll stitch 2 double crochets in that last double crochet stitch. And so we're increasing at the beginning and end of our row again. All right, so we'll continue across 1 double crochet in each double crochet, and then 2 double crochets in our last stitch. I have completed row 3. We increased at the beginning and end of our row, so now we have 19 double crochets. Chain 3 and turn. Now we're not going to increase anymore. What we're going to do is this chain 3 counts as our first stitch, but we're not going to stitch in that first stitch. We're going to go to the next stitch and stitch a double crochet because we do not want to increase anymore. All right, so we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across, and that includes that last stitch. We're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in our last stitch. All right, so 1 double crochet in each of our double crochets across. So for row 4, we did not increase at the beginning and end. We stitched 1 double crochet in each of our stitches across. Our chain 3 counted as our first, and so we still have 19 stitches. And so for row 5, we're just going to repeat what we did on row 4. We're not going to stitch in the same stitch as our chain 3. We're going to go to the next double crochet and just stitch 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets across. just like we did for row 4. So I have completed row 5, and again I have 19 double crochets. We did not chain 2 because we're changing colors, but do not cut your yarn. Leave your yarn attached. We're going to carry it up on the side, and when we place the 2 eggs together and do the trim, we'll cover all that up and you won't even see where we carried our yarn. All right, so we're going to bring in the purple, which this is my color 2. Whatever color 2 you want, of course you do that. Now we're only going to chain 2. This chain 2 counts as our first half double crochet. I'm just snugging everything down there. We're going to turn our work. So I'm going to move my pink yarn out of the way. And we're going to be working with our color 2. We're going to half double crochet in the next stitch. Not the same stitch as our chain 1, but in the next stitch. All right, in case you don't know what the half double crochet is, you yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3 of those loops. All right, now we're going to be making half double crochet V stitches. All right, so we're going to skip the next stitch, and then in the next stitch, so we're skipping this one, we'll go in the next stitch, half double crochet, chain 1, and half double crochet in the same stitch. And that makes a nice little V stitch. We'll skip the next stitch and half double crochet V stitch in the next. Skip the next, half double crochet V stitch, which again is a half double crochet, chain 1, and half double crochet in the same stitch. And we'll repeat this across till we reach those last 2 stitches. So we've made 7 half double crochet V stitches. Here's our next skip stitch, and we have 2 stitches left. And so we're going to stitch 1 half double crochet in those last 2 stitches. All right, so we have our chain 2 that counts as our first half double crochet, and then our half double crochet, skip, half double crochet V stitch, skip, and we repeat this across, so we'll have 7 half double crochet V stitches. Then we skip the next stitch and 2 half double crochets. And that's the way row 6 should look. Now this next row might be a little bit complicated only because we're not cutting any of our yarns. We're leaving our color 1, our color 2 attached, and we're bringing in our color 3. If it's a little bit clumsy for you, you can cut your yarns and weave those in. I just like to do it this way because I think it's easier. But remember, you do what works best for you. Okay? All right, so now we're going to bring in our yellow, or our color 3. We'll snug that down and only chain 2. All right, now I'm going to turn my work, and we're going to make sure all of those yarns are out of the way, and we're only going to work with our color 3. There we go. All right, so our chain 2 counts as our first half double crochet, and we're going to half double crochet in the next half double crochet. Now we're going to go to the chain 1 space of that previous half double crochet V stitch and stitch a half double crochet V stitch. Again, half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet. All right, let me get some more yarn out of here. Okay, now what we're going to do is repeat this in those next 6 V stitches. So we'll go in that chain 1 space and stitch our half double crochet V stitch. And we'll do this in each of those half double crochet V stitches. All right, see how that looks? We'll do this across and then 1/2 double crochet in those last 2 stitches. So for row 7, we have 2 half double crochets. We have 7 half double crochet V-stitches and 2 half double crochets in our color 3. Now we're going to bring back in our color 1. So we're just going to bring it up, and see, that alleviates us having to weave that in if we let it just trail up the side. All right, let's chain 2. We're going to turn our work and get all the other strands out of the way. I'm going to move this yellow one down so that it's out of my way. There we go. Like I said, this part is a little bit tricky trying to keep your strings out of the way, but I think it's worth it so that you don't have to weave in extra stitches. If it's too clumsy, like I said, go ahead and cut your yarn and you can weave those in. It doesn't matter. It looks just as pretty both ways. We've chained 2 with our color 1. We're going to half double crochet in that next half double crochet stitch. Now we're going to go to the chain 1 space and stitch a half double crochet, chain 1 half double crochet, which is our half double crochet V-stitch. There we go. And again, we're going to repeat this all the way across the row, stitching a half double crochet V-stitch in each of the chain 1 spaces of the half double crochet V-stitches, and then 2 half double crochets in the last 2, just like we did with our yellow row. So I have completed row 8. We have 2 half double crochets, 7 half double crochet V-stitches, and 2 half double crochets. And so now what you're going to do is you're going to repeat the purple row and the yellow row one more time so that we have another row of purple and another row of yellow, or another row of color 2, another row of color 3. All right, we'll do them just the same. 2 half double crochets, half double crochet V-stitch in the 7 chain 1 spaces, and 2 half double crochets. So basically you're repeating row 7 2 more times in 2 more colors. So I have repeated the purple and yellow row up here. We did them all the same. 2 half double crochets, 7 half double crochet V-stitches, and 2 half double crochets. I have gone ahead and cut off my color 2 and color 3 yarns because now we're going to finish the top of our egg. So we're going to bring in our color 1. But if you want to do another color, of course, you could always bring in your purple or finish off with your yellow, however you want to do your egg pillow. All right, now we're only going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work. We're going to double crochet together the first 2 half double crochets. So we're going to yarn over, go in that first stitch and pull up a loop. Then we're going to go in the next stitch and pull up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook instead of 3. Yarn over, go through the first 3, yarn over and go through the last 2. So we decreased by 1 stitch. And so now what we're going to do is we stitched our first 2 double crochets together, and now we're going to double crochet in each of the half double crochets of our V stitches. Now it can be a little bit difficult to find those stitches, and so if you pull it up like this and look at the top, you'll be able to find those stitches a lot easier. And we're stitching a double crochet in the 2 half double crochets of our V stitches, not half double crochets. And we're not stitching in the chain 1 spaces, okay? So we're stitching a double crochet in each of the half double crochets of our V stitches. See how that works? And we'll do this working all the way across till we reach those last 2 half double crochets. You should have 14 double crochets plus the one where we stitched the 2 together, And then we have 2 here. We're going to stitch our last 2 half double crochets together. Get in there. With a double crochet decrease, or stitching 2 double crochets together. So that gets us 16 double crochets. We stitch 2 together, we have 14, and then we stitch these 2 together. So 14, 15, and 16 is 16 double crochets for row 11. So we're only going to chain 1, and we're going to turn our work. We're going to stitch the first 2 double crochets together. So yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, go in the next double crochet and pull up a loop. Yarn over, go through the 3, yarn over and go through the last 2. And now we'll double crochet in each of the double crochets across, again until we reach that last 2 double crochets, and then we'll stitch the last 2 together. And we're starting to form our decreases that will form the top of our egg pillow. And you'll notice it's going to start curling in on you, and that's exactly what we want it to do. So we stitched the first 2 double crochets together. We stitched 1 double crochet in each stitch across until we reach those last 2, and we're going to decrease by stitching 2 double crochets together. And chain 1. And so for row 12, we're going to have 14 double crochets because we decreased at the beginning and the end. We chained 1, we're going to turn our work and repeat. We're going to stitch the first 2 together. And then 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across until we reach that last 2 double crochets, and then we'll stitch those 2 together as well. And so again, I stitched the first 2 together in a double crochet decrease, 1 double crochet in each across, and then a double crochet decrease, or stitching 2 double crochets together with the last 2, and chain 1. And so now we only have 12 double crochets. And you can see how the top of our egg is coming in. And now we only have 1 more row to do. And basically we're just going to repeat what we've been doing. We chained 1, we turn our work, we'll stitch the first 2 together with a double crochet decrease. There we go. 1 double crochet in each of the stitches across until we reach those last 2. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we'll stitch the last 2 together, which will give us 10 double crochets. All right, now you need to do 2 of these. So you're going to need 2. You need a front and a back. This one I've already tidied all the ends in. And then this one I'm leaving the yarn attached so I can use that to stitch them 2 together. But I wanted to show you how I weave the ends in on something like blanket yarn because it is a little bit different and a little bit more difficult. All right, so I'm going to show you how I weave in the ends on something like blanket yarn. I will have some that are trailed across. I won't worry about those. Those will get stitched in when we stitch our 2 eggs together for stuffing. Well, what I do is I leave a nice size tail of yarn. This one's longer, we'll use it. I make sure my needle has a nice big eye on it. And then I'll go in the loops of the stitches. You cannot go through the fabrics of the fibers of the yarn, because with blanket yarn it's just really too difficult. So I'll go around and back and forth, going through the loops, making sure I stay in the same color, and then I'll just leave it on the inside since I'm making a pillow. All right, I know I always tell you go through the fibers of the yarn, but it just doesn't work that way with blanket yarn. Some of the velvet yarns are difficult to do that as well, and fuzzy yarns. So just go through the loops of the stitches. That one's a little shorter, but you want to try to go back and forth and just make sure it's secure. And then I don't really cut them, since it's going to be a pillow with stuffing in it. I just go ahead and leave them. All right, so let me finish tidying this one up, and then I'll show you how to put it together. If you want your egg pillow to have a silly smile or a silly face, you can either do French knots for eyes, or you can use silly eyes. And I've got some nice sized ones here. When you're putting them on a pillow or something with big stitches, you want to make sure that you go in the stitch itself, not through the holes, or they'll come out. Okay, and so you can go through there. I'm going to bring them down just a little, and I'm going to go right through the stitch. I'm going to grab that flat and just push it on nice and snug until it pops like that. Now there is a tool you can use that you can pick up. I just do it myself. I guess I'm pretty strong. All right, let me see if the eyes are nice and even. I like that. Went right through that stitch. And we'll snap that on. All right, so now he has some silly eyes. I'm just going to add a really quick, easy grin. All right, so I'm going to come up through a stitch down here. I'm going to leave that so I can weave that in later. And I'm just going to make that a little bit of a line. Let's see, let's make sure everything's lined up there. And when you're stitching on a smile, you also want to make sure you're stitching in the stitches, because if you go in the holes, you'll lose your smile. All right, I'm just going to go through the stitch there, and I'm using 2 strands of medium weight. Whoops. Went through my, there we go. Okay, I'm using 2 strands of medium weight number 4 black yarn. Make sure we get the, there we go. Just to make it a little bit thicker. All right, now I'm gonna make sure that's nice and, okay, that pulled a little. Let's see, what is pulling? I want to make sure everything's laying nice and pretty. There we go. And then we'll just pull that. Oh, we got one more string. And that happens sometimes when you're using 2 strands. Don't panic. Just gently pull on them. And then we lost our little end there, so let's pull that out. There we go. And just gently pull on those loops. There we go. All right, so now, and you have to make it a little bit loose because you're working with a yarn that is a little bit fluffy. There we go. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop back here, just so it can bring me back where I need to go. I'll make sure I come up in a stitch, because you'll lose your smile if you don't come up in a stitch. My loops keep not pulling the same, which is odd. Okay. There we go. And now you want to make sure that when you put that end on that you, there we go. We'll call him Egbert. How about that? I just want to make sure I'm coming up in a stitch because I don't want to lose it in there. All right, I guess I'll do it this way because it doesn't want to come up there. Alrighty. Now, I'm going to put the end on. Alright, now what I usually do at this point is I look to see if I like how it's laying. I'm loosening up those things. And you can see there's some space there. And so I'm just going to come up here and make sure I don't have any space. Gently pull my loops. There we go. And if you want your mouth to be just a little bit thicker, keep grabbing that loop from behind, you can just go over it, which is what I like to do. And I'll go like this. And I chose just to do mine in black, just to make it easy. But you can use any colors that you want. You can put a nice big pink lips on there, or, you know, whatever you want to do. There we go. That looks a lot better. Now it's a little more visible. And I want to go over the end of his mouth again, so we have a nice big smile. Grab that, pull that down. There we go. So now my Egbert has a silly smile. It is a little bit loopy, and you can kind of loosen those up. But anyway, you don't have to add a smile. It's up to you. And I'm just going to take these and tie a little knot nice and loosely. Because again, this is on the inside. And of course, you do not have to add a face to your egg if you don't want to. It just adds a fun little touch. All right, so we have our 2 eggs. We're going to make sure that they're facing right sides out. All right. And we're going to be stuffing it from the top, by the way. We're going to take our hook, make a little chain 1. And now we're going to evenly single crochet all the way around. Mine's going to have one side that does not have a face and one side that does. And so it's up to you whether you want yours to have a face or not. All right. Now, when you're stitching single crochets evenly, it can be a little bit difficult knowing where to put your stitches. And I always say try to put them in the sides of the stitches and not the holes. Now, there's not a set amount of stitches you need to have. You need to just look at your work and make sure that you're putting them close together, that it's not bunching up on you, and that you don't have too much space. When it comes to a stuffy or a stuffed animal like this, I guess this isn't an animal, it's an egg. Well, it might be an animal since an egg is a baby chicken. But anyway, when you're making something like this, it's almost better to put your stitches close together so that your stuffing doesn't come out. All right. Now, when you get to the sides where you have those places where you carried your yarn, make sure you stitch over those spaces or places where you carried your yarn. Okay. And make sure you're on both sides of your pillow. And it may take a little more work and a little more finagling, but you don't want those showing. Okay? Alrighty. Let's see. There we go. And so we're just going to continue to stitch all the way around evenly, single crochet stitches, stitching the front and the back together. Making sure we stitch around those places where we carried our yarn and try to make it look as neat and pretty as possible. And again, there is no set number of stitches. Do make sure that everything lines up when you get down here at the bottom, because yarn is very stretchy, and you want to make sure it lines up across the bottom, across the side, and then we're going to stitch over to here. We're going to stuff it from the top, and then we'll close the top. I have stitched all the way around, stitching the front and back together. Now we're going to stuff it. And I like to kind of pull my stuffing apart. And if you start at the bottom and just stuff it, it's up to you how much stuffing you want in your silly little egg. Move my hook. It's making too much noise. There we go. That's why I said about 10 to 12 ounces of stuffing. Pulling some more out here. It's kind of up to you how much stuffing you want to put in your egg. I'm calling him Egbert since he has a face. All right, that looks good. And so now we're just going to close up the end, continuing to stitch single crochets evenly across the top. And one of the nice things is at the top we have stitches to stitch in, because that's where we made our row of stitches from our previous, or I should say from our last row. All right, and so now we can just single crochet the top of our pillow closed. I've stitched around the top, stitching it closed. I'm going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch and cut my yarn. We'll tie that off and we'll grab our needle. Mine still has my black yarn in it, so let's pull that out. Put our yarn here in it and weave this in. And so I'm going to go back and forth in these stitches quite a few times, because we don't want that to come undone. There we go. And now I'm just going to go down in that batting, make some swirly lines, and just bring this up here. And then we'll just push that back in. All right, so if you want your egg to just be a cute little stuffy egg, it's adorable. If you want it to be a little Egbert, you can add a little face. And if you're going to use this and give it to children, I suggest making some big French knots or maybe some big circles opposed to the safety eyes. Because again, safety eyes can pull out of crochet and they can get put in their mouths by accident. All right? Egbert says Happy Easter.